Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. Henry Richardson pressed his daughter's contact for the 7th time that week. The call rang twice before going to voicemail. Her cheerful recorded voice felt like a knife twisting in his gut. "Hey, this is Mindy. Leave a message and I'll call you back." He wouldn't leave another message. He'd already left 6, each one more desperate than the last. 3 weeks. 21 days since his 12-year-old daughter had gone to stay with her maternal grandparents, Jan and Jonathan Marr, for what was supposed to be a 1-week summer vacation. Henry stood in his kitchen, the morning sun cutting harsh angles through the windows of his Denver home. The house felt too empty, too quiet. It had been this way since Sherry died 2 years ago. Cancer had taken her fast, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. But Mindy had been his anchor through that storm. Her laughter filled the spaces Sherry left behind. Her presence reminded him why he had to keep going. Now she was gone too. Not dead, he told himself. Just away. His phone buzzed. A text from Jan Marr. "Henry, please stop calling. Mindy is having a wonderful time. She's just busy with activities. You're being obsessive. Let her enjoy her vacation." Obsessive. The word stung because part of him wondered if it was true. The therapist he'd seen after Sherry's death had warned him about transferring his anxiety onto Mindy, about being overprotective. But this felt different. This felt wrong. Before Sherry got sick, the Marrs had been cordial if distant. Jan was a retired nurse with a smile that never reached her eyes. Jonathan, a former pharmacist, spoke in careful, measured tones that always made Henry feel like he was being evaluated. They'd never approved of their daughter marrying a crime scene photographer. Too morbid, Janet said once. Too much death. After Sherry died, something shifted. Jan started making comments about Mindy's well-being. Subtle things. "She seems tired when she's with you. Does she eat enough? She's so quiet lately." Jonathan would nod along, adding clinical observations about child development and stress indicators. Henry had ignored it. Grief made people act strange. But then came the invitation from Mindy to spend her summer vacation with them. "She needs a break from that gloomy house," Jan had said. "Let her have some fun. We'll take her to the mountains, go hiking, visit museums." Mindy had been excited. Henry had agreed, thinking it might be good for her. For both of them. That was 4 weeks ago. The first week had been fine. Daily video calls, Mindy showing him rocks she collected, talking about the trails they'd hiked. Then the calls became sporadic. Then they stopped. Text messages only, and those felt off. Too formal. Not like Mindy at all. When Henry had called Jan about it, she'd been dismissive. "She's 12, Henry. She's discovering independence. Don't smother her." He tried to drive up to Castle Rock where the Marrs lived, but Jan had met him at a coffee shop downtown instead without Mindy. "She's at a friend's house," Jan had explained. "A girl from the neighborhood. You can't just show up unannounced and disrupt her social life." Henry had left feeling like he'd been handled, managed. Now, standing in his kitchen with another dismissive text from Jan, something in him hardened. He wasn't being obsessive. A father knows when something's wrong with his child. He could feel it in his bones, the same instinct that had made him good at his job. Reading scenes, finding the details that didn't fit, seeing what others missed. He opened his laptop and pulled up the background check he'd run on the Marrs property. Standard public records search, nothing invasive. They own their home on Willow Creek Drive. No mortgages, no liens. Clean history. But he noticed something odd. Utility bills showed unusually high usage for a 2-person household. Electric and water both spiked significantly in the past month. His phone rang. Unknown number. Henry almost didn't answer, but something made him swipe. "Mr. Richardson?" A male voice, nervous. "Young. Yes. I need to talk to you about your daughter. But not over the phone. Can you meet me somewhere public? There's a King Soopers on Hampton. I'll be in the produce section in 20 minutes. "Who is this? How do you know?" The line went dead. Henry grabbed his keys. The grocery store was moderately busy for a Thursday morning. Henry moved through the automatic doors, eyes scanning. He didn't know who he was looking for, but his training kicked in. Observe everything, trust nothing. He reached the produce section, pretended to examine tomatoes while watching the crowd. A young man, maybe 25, thin with nervous eyes, kept glancing his way. He wore a King Soopers employee vest. The young man picked up a bag, walked past Henry, and their shoulders brushed. Henry felt paper press into his palm. The employee kept walking, didn't look back. Henry stepped into the bread aisle, alone. He unfolded the note. Your daughter is not okay. She needs help. 47 Maple Street. Come at midnight. Come alone. They're watching. Destroy this note. His hand shook. He read it again. 47 Maple Street. He didn't know the address, but he'd find it. He pulled out his lighter, always carried one from his smoking days, and burned the note in the store bathroom sink, flushing the ashes. Back in his truck, Henry searched the address. Castle Rock, not far from Mars' house. Street view showed a modest ranch-style home, well-maintained, normal. Owners listed as Dr. Philip O'Connell and wife Elena Clark O'Connell. He ran deeper searches. O'Connell was a psychiatrist specializing in adolescent behavioral disorders. Elena was a social worker. The pieces started forming a picture Henry didn't want to see, but he learned long ago that the truth didn't care what you wanted. He spent the rest of the day preparing, called in sick to work, checked his camera equipment out of habit. He always documented everything. Charged his phone, backup battery packs. He owned a gun, a Glock 19, legally registered. He'd bought it after Sherry died, when the house felt too vulnerable at night. He checked it now, made sure it was loaded, tucked it in his waistband. At 11:30 p.m., Henry drove north on I-25. Castle Rock rose from the plains like a sleeping giant. He parked 2 blocks from 47 Maple Street and walked, staying in shadows. The neighborhood was quiet, affluent. Large homes with perfect lawns. Number 47 sat dark except for a single porch light. Henry approached from the side, using hedges for cover. His heart hammered. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. But if there was even a chance Mindy was in trouble. The front door stood slightly ajar. Henry touched the handle, pushed it open slowly. The hinges were well-oiled, silent. He stepped inside. The entry was dark. He let his eyes adjust. Shapes emerged, a coat rack, a small table, stairs leading up. Then he saw the light coming from a hallway to the right. Heard voices, low murmuring. He moved toward the sound, every muscle coiled. The hallway opened into what looked like a home office. And there, projected on a large monitor, was footage that made Henry's blood turn to ice. Mindy, in what looked like a hospital room. White walls, a bed with restraints, and 4-stand. She was curled on her side, staring at nothing. Her eyes were hollow, empty. You shouldn't have come alone. Henry spun. A man stood in the doorway behind him, Jonathan Marr, and he was holding a syringe. Before Henry could reach for his gun, 2 figures grabbed him from the sides. Strong hands. He struggled, but something sharp bit into his neck. The room tilted. As darkness took him, he saw Jonathan's face lean close. You killed our daughter, Henry. Now you'll watch us unmake yours. Henry woke to splitting pain. His head throbbed, his mouth tasted like copper. He was sitting in a chair, hands zip-tied behind him. The room swam into focus, still the office, but the monitor was off now. Jonathan Marr sat across from him in a leather chair, looking professorial. Calm. Jan stood beside him, arms crossed. Behind them, Dr. Philip O'Connell leaned against a desk, watching Henry with clinical detachment. You're awake. Good. Jonathan's voice was pleasant, conversational. We gave you a mild sedative. Nothing that will cause permanent damage. We're not monsters, Henry. Henry's throat felt raw, but he found his voice. Where's Mindy? Safe. For now. Jan's smile was sharp. She's been staying with Dr. O'Connell and his wife. They've been helping her understand some difficult truths. Truths? Henry pulled against the restraints. The plastic bit into his wrists. What the hell are you talking about? Jonathan leaned forward. You murdered our daughter. Sherry had cancer. Sherry had treatable cancer. Jan's composure cracked. Stage 2. Highly responsive to treatment. But you convinced her to refuse it. All that holistic nonsense. Meditation and vitamins instead of chemotherapy. You killed her. Henry's mind reeled. That's insane. Sherry made her own choices. I supported whatever she wanted. You poisoned her mind against us, Jonathan interrupted. We beg her to get proper treatment. But you filled her head with fear about side effects, about pharmaceutical companies, about doctors. You did that, Henry. You're a photographer who thinks he knows better than medical professionals. That's not. She was scared. She researched everything herself. You just watch her die, Jan hissed. And then you gotta play the grieving widower. Poor Henry Richardson, raising his daughter alone. Everyone felt so sorry for you. Dr. O'Connell spoke for the first time, his voice clinically detached. Parental alienation combined with medical neglect, leading to wrongful death. In my professional opinion, you created an environment of psychological manipulation that contributed to Sherry's demise. The question becomes, what do we do about Mindy? Henry's stomach dropped. You can't. She's my daughter. A daughter who's been exposed to your psychological manipulation for 2 years, O'Connell continued. Jan and Jonathan came to me 6 months ago with concerns. We've been building a case. Documentation of Mindy's anxiety, her isolation, her obsessive attachment to you. Classic signs of parental enmeshment and potential abuse. I've never hurt her. Not physically, Jan said coldly, but the psychological damage, we've been helping her see clearly. Dr. O'Connell has been working with her, gently, to understand how you've controlled her, how you used her to replace Sherry, how unhealthy your relationship has become. Henry felt like he was falling through ice. You've been brainwashing her. We've been deprogramming her, Jonathan corrected, from your influence. And it's been remarkably effective. 3 weeks of intensive therapy, and she's already starting to express very concerning things about her home life with you. This is kidnapping. It's illegal. Is it? O'Connell pulled out a folder. We have documentation, psychological evaluations, Mindy's own statements, recorded, witnessed, describing her fear of disappointing you, her anxiety about being alone with you, her confusion about appropriate boundaries, combined with the Mars concerns as legal next of kin and my professional recommendation. We have grounds for emergency custody transfer. Henry's mind raced. This was a setup, an elaborate, calculated revenge plot. They've been planning this for months. No judge would. Oh, but they will, Jan said softly, especially when they see the evidence. When they hear Mindy describe how uncomfortable you make her feel, how you photograph death for a living and bring that darkness home, how you barely let her out of your sight, how you call her obsessively, won't let her have a normal relationship with her grandparents. Jonathan stood, walked to a filing cabinet, and pulled out another folder. He dropped it on Henry's lap. Inside were photos. Henry recognized his own house, his own truck. Photos of him picking Mindy up from school, at the park with her, helping her with homework through the living room window. We've been documenting everything, Jonathan said. Every interaction. Every time you isolated her. Every time you kept her from having a normal childhood. Through the right lens, Henry, you look like a very troubled man. Henry stared at the photos. Taken out of context, cropped, arranged, they told a story. Not the truth, but a version of it that could be believed. A grieving widower clinging too hard to his only child. A man working a dark job, living in a house of death, projecting his trauma onto an innocent girl. You can't do this, Henry said, but his voice lacked conviction. He was starting to understand how deep this went. We already are, Elena Clark O'Connell said, appearing in the doorway. Henry hadn't even noticed her before. She was blonde, professional, with kind eyes that probably made children trust her instantly. Mindy's been staying with us. She's been opening up beautifully about her home life. The poor thing has been so stressed. I want to see her. I'm afraid that's not possible, O'Connell said. In her current state of recovery, seeing you would be re-triggering. It might undo all the progress we've made. Henry pulled hard against the zip ties. This is insane. You drugged me. You're holding me hostage. Are we? Jonathan's smile was cold. You broke into a private residence at midnight, Henry. We found you confused, disoriented. Dr. O'Connell had to sedate you for everyone's safety. We called the police, actually. They should be here soon. The trap closed around him. Of course. They'd report him as an intruder, unstable, possibly armed. It would feed directly into their narrative. The note, Henry said desperately. Someone gave me a note. Told me to come here. Do you have this note? Jan asked innocently. He'd burned it. Of course he'd burned it. They'd known he would. Who gave it to you? O'Connell asked. Can you describe them? Do you have any proof this note existed? Henry said nothing. Anything he said would make him sound more paranoid, more unstable. Here's what's going to happen, Jonathan said, pulling up a chair close to Henry. Tonight was your breaking point. The stress of losing Sherry, the isolation, the obsessive relationship with Mindy, it all became too much. You had a psychotic break. Started imagining conspiracies. Broke into a stranger's home looking for your daughter, who was safely asleep at her grandparents' house the whole time. Except she wasn't, Henry said. I saw the footage. She's here somewhere, or she was. Footage. Jan laughed. Henry, you were drugged and disoriented. You don't know what you saw. The monitor was off. No evidence. His word against theirs. And they had a psychiatrist backing their story. The police will take you in for evaluation, O'Connell continued. You'll spend some time in psychiatric care. During that time, Jan and Jonathan will file for emergency custody of Mindy, citing your mental breakdown and inability to care for her. I'll provide expert testimony about your psychological state and the concerning environment you created for her. It'll be fast, clean, and completely legal. She'll know the truth, Henry said. Mindy knows me. She'll tell them. Mindy doesn't know what to believe anymore, Elena said gently, almost sadly. She's confused. Scared. We've helped her understand that her feelings about you, the anxiety, the pressure to be perfect, the fear of abandonment, those aren't normal. We've helped her see that love shouldn't feel like that. Henry felt something break inside him. They'd gotten to her. His daughter, his Mindy, who'd held his hand at Sherry's funeral, who'd told him every day that they'd be okay together. They'd twisted her memories, her feelings, her reality. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Jonathan stood. I want you to know, Henry, that this isn't personal. This is justice. You took our daughter through negligence and arrogance. We're taking yours through the law. She'll have a good life with us. We'll undo the damage you've done. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you lost her, just like we lost Sherry. The sirens were close now. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Henry closed his eyes, let his body slump in the chair, let his breathing even out. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd cornered him, broken him, trapped him in their carefully constructed narrative. But they'd made a mistake. They let him see the game board. And Henry Richardson had spent 15 years photographing crime scenes, learning how criminals thought, how they made mistakes, how arrogance led to downfalls. He documented hundreds of cases where the perpetrator thought they'd planned everything perfectly, only to miss one crucial detail. The Mars, O'Connell, Elena, they were so focused on their revenge, on their carefully crafted psychological warfare, that they'd forgotten something important. Henry was very, very good at collecting evidence. The camera in his truck had been running since he parked. The backup recording app on his phone had been activated before he entered the house. And most importantly, they just confessed everything in front of a man who knew exactly how to make sure their words would be heard. As the police burst through the door, as Jonathan put on his concerned citizen face, and O'Connell prepared his psychiatric assessment, Henry kept his eyes closed and thought of Mindy. Hold on, sweetheart. Daddy's not done yet. The game was just beginning. The psychiatric hold lasted 72 hours. Henry spent them in a clean, quiet room at Cedar Springs Behavioral Health Center, submitted to evaluations, answered questions with calm precision. He knew the script: don't get angry, don't sound paranoid, don't give them ammunition. Dr. Timothy Archer, a sharp-eyed psychiatrist in his 50s, conducted the primary evaluation. He wasn't part of the Mars Circle, which meant he was actually looking for truth rather than confirmation. Tell me about the night you went to 47 Maple Street, Dr. Archer said during their second session. Henry recounted it carefully. The note, the address, finding the door open, seeing the footage, the confrontation. He didn't embellish, didn't theorize, just facts. And you have no proof of this note? I destroyed it. It said to, and I was scared. I thought Mindy was in danger. That's a significant detail. Most people would keep evidence. I'm a crime scene photographer, doctor. I've seen what happens when people don't follow instructions in situations involving children. I made a split-second decision. In hindsight, yes, I should have kept it. Dr. Archer made notes. Your in-laws claim you've been obsessively calling Mindy, that you can't accept her growing independence. I called 7 times in 3 weeks. That's not obsessive. That's a father worried about his daughter who suddenly stopped communicating. They say she's just enjoying her vacation. Then why won't they let me talk to her? One video call, doctor. That's all I've asked for. 5 minutes to see she's okay. They've refused every time. More notes. Tell me about your relationship with Mindy. Henry did. Bedtime stories and breakfast routines. Homework help and weekend hikes. The way they'd created new traditions after Sherry died. Friday pizza nights, Sunday afternoon photo walks where he'd teach her composition and she'd laugh at his terrible dad jokes. She sounds like a well-adjusted child, Dr. Archer observed. She is. I don't know what they've done to her in 3 weeks. That concerns you. Wouldn't it concern you? 3 weeks of intensive therapy without my knowledge or consent. They've essentially kidnapped her and are calling it treatment. Dr. Archer leaned back. You sound very rational right now, Henry. The police report paints a different picture. Says you were disoriented, aggressive, had to be sedated. I was drugged. They admitted it. Jonathan Marr injected me with something before I even knew he was there. The Marrs say you were already disoriented when they found you. That you broke into the O'Connell's home in a paranoid state. Henry met his eyes. Doctor, I'm going to be direct with you. This isn't about my mental health. This is about revenge. The Marrs blame me for their daughter's death. They believe I convinced her to refuse cancer treatment. That's not true, but they believe it. And they've spent months planning to take Mindy from me as punishment. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. And I can prove it. Dr. Archer's pen paused. Ow! I recorded everything. My truck has a security camera. My phone has a backup recording app that I activated before entering the house. I have audio of them confessing their entire plan. This was partly true. The truck camera was real. The recording app existed. Whether they'd actually captured anything useful, that was still unknown. His phone had been confiscated, his truck impounded. But dropping that information was important. Let it circulate. Let the Marrs wonder what he had. Dr. Archer studied him for a long moment. If that's true, why haven't you told the police? Because I want to talk to a lawyer first. And I want you to evaluate me honestly, doctor. Look at my history. Talk to people who know me. My employer, Mindy's teachers, our neighbors. Build an actual profile instead of accepting a narrative handed to you. You seem very calm for someone in your situation. I learned a long time ago that panic doesn't solve problems. Action does. Right now, I'm taking the action of cooperating fully with this evaluation, so you can see I'm not having a psychotic break. I'm a father trying to protect his daughter from people who've weaponized the mental health system for revenge. Dr. Archer's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Interest, maybe, or doubt about the story he'd been fed. On the 3rd day, Henry was released. Dr. Archer's report concluded, patient presents no current danger to self or others. Situational stressors and legitimate parental concern noted. Recommend family therapy and monitored visitation with minor child, not hospitalization or custody removal. It wasn't enough to stop the Marrs, but it was something. It meant one person in the system had actually looked at him instead of just the story about him. Billy Mason, his lawyer, met him outside the facility. Billy was an old friend from college, now a family law attorney with a reputation for fighting dirty when necessary. 52, graying, with kind eyes and a shark's instinct. Hell of a week, Billy said as they walked to his car. You have no idea. Once they were driving, Billy handed Henry his phone. I pulled strings to get this back before the evidence review. You're going to want to check something. Henry's hands shook as he opened the recording app. 3 files. He pressed play on the longest one. Static. Movement sounds. Then voices slightly muffled but audible. Killed our daughter, Henry. Now you'll watch us unmake yours. Henry's breath caught. It had worked. The phone in his pocket had caught everything. He listened to the entire conversation. Jonathan and Jan confessing their plan. O'Connell describing the manipulation. Elena discussing Mindy's progress. All of it recorded and time-stamped. That Billy said quietly, is a very serious confession of parental alienation, false imprisonment, drugging someone without consent, conspiracy to commit fraud, and about 6 other charges I can think of off the top of my head. Can we use it in court? Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings. You were party to the conversation. It's admissible. Billy glanced at him. But Henry, we need to be smart about this. They still have Mindy. They're still filing for custody. If we go nuclear now, they might do something desperate. Like what? What else can they do to her? Make her disappear. Claim she ran away, that you're making her life hell. Take her out of state before we can get a custody order. Or, Billy's jaw tightened, or convince her that everything they've told her is true. That you're dangerous. That she needs to be afraid of you. Henry stared out the window at the Denver skyline. So what do? We document everything. We build an airtight case. And we find out exactly where Mindy is and what they've done to her. Then we destroy them so completely they'll never come near either of you again. I need to see her. I know. I'm filing an emergency motion for a welfare check and supervised visitation. With Dr. Archer's report and the circumstances around your psychiatric hold, we have grounds. But Henry, Billy's voice softened. Prepare yourself. 3 weeks of intensive manipulation. She might not be the same kid you dropped off. Henry already knew that. Had known at the moment he'd seen her hollow eyes on that monitor. But knowing and accepting were different things. They drove to Billy's office, a converted brownstone in Capitol Hill. Inside, Billy spread papers across his conference table. Okay, here's what we know. Jan and Jonathan Marr filed for emergency guardianship yesterday, citing your psychiatric break and alleged history of psychological abuse. Dr. Philip O'Connell provided an affidavit supporting their petition. Where's Mindy right now? Officially with the Marrs. They've listed their home address in Castle Rock. But Billy pulled out his phone, showed Henry a screenshot. I've got a private investigator who does work for me. Larry Suarez, former cop, very good at finding things people want hidden. He's been watching the Marr house since yesterday. No sign of a 12-year-old girl. No deliveries that suggest a kid is there. Nothing. Henry's chest tightened. So where is she? That's what we need to find out. Larry's checking hospitals, treatment facilities, private residences connected to the O'Connells. But she's somewhere, Henry. They need her alive and cooperative for their custody, play to work. Unless they decide I'm too much of a threat. Henry's mind went to dark places. If they think I'll fight back, if they think I have evidence. Which is why we're not tipping our hand yet. As far as they know, you're a broken man who just got out of psych hold. We keep it that way until we're ready to strike. Over the next week, Henry became intimately familiar with the legal system's crawl. Motions filed. Responses delayed. Court dates scheduled and rescheduled. Every day that passed was another day Mindy was with them, being reprogrammed to fear him. But Henry wasn't idle. He learned patience from his work. Crime scenes didn't reveal their secrets quickly. You had to look, document, analyze, and slowly build the truth from fragments. He started with Sherry's medical records. It took 3 days and a court order, but Billy got them. Henry read through every page, every consultation note, every treatment discussion. The truth was exactly as he remembered. Sherry had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, highly treatable. The oncologist had recommended chemotherapy and radiation. But Sherry had asked questions, lots of them, about side effects, success rates, alternative approaches. The doctor had patiently answered everything. Then came the crucial detail Henry had forgotten. Jan and Jonathan had been in that appointment. The notes mentioned patient's parents present, expressing strong concerns about alternative treatment discussions. Another note, 2 weeks later, patient reports family conflict regarding treatment decisions. Patient feels pressured by parents to immediately start chemo, requesting time to research and decide. Sherry hadn't rejected treatment because of Henry. She'd wanted time to make an informed decision. The Marrs had pushed too hard, too fast, and she'd pulled away. It was in black and white. This changes things, Billy said when Henry showed him. This proves their narrative is false. Sherry made her own choices. If anything, they were the ones trying to control her. But when Sherry's cancer had progressed, when it became clear that time had been her enemy, the Mars had needed someone to blame. And Henry, the outsider, the man who'd taken their daughter away, was the easy target. Larry Suarez came through on day 9. He appeared at Billy's office looking exhausted but satisfied. 50s, built like someone who'd spent years on the street, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Found her, Larry said without preamble. He dropped photos on the table. Mindy, getting into a car with Elena Clark O'Connell. Outside a facility called Meadowbrook Youth Wellness Center. Private residential treatment facility, Larry explained. About 40 minutes outside Denver, up in the mountains. Specializes in behavioral rehabilitation and family therapy. Translation, they take troubled kids and keep them isolated while working on them. Henry stared at his daughter's picture. She looked thin, pale, nothing like the vibrant kid who'd left for vacation a month ago. They're keeping her there under the O'Connell's authority as treating physicians, Larry continued. The staff thinks she's being treated for anxiety and depression. They have no idea she's the subject of a custody battle. Can we get her out? Not without a court order. The facility is legally operating, and, as far as they know, the O'Connells have proper authority. Larry pulled out more photos. But I got these of the staff, the facility layout, and I've been tracking who visits. Just the O'Connells and the Mars. No one else. Billy studied the photos. Meadowbrook. I remember this place. There was a case 5 years ago, allegations of questionable treatment practices. Nothing was proven, but there were complaints about isolation tactics and what some parents called brainwashing. They're breaking her down, Henry said quietly. Isolating her from anything familiar, feeding her a new reality, making her doubt her own memories. Classic cult tactics, Larry agreed. Only they're using the mental health system as cover. Henry looked at Billy. How long until we can get in front of a judge? Emergency hearing is set for tomorrow. We'll present everything. The recording, Sherry's medical records, the psychiatric hold circumstances, Mindy's location. It should be enough to at least get you supervised visitation and a proper custody evaluation. Should be. Billy's expression was grim. Henry, the Mars have been planning this for months. They've got documentation, expert testimony, and a very sympathetic narrative. You're fighting an uphill battle. Then we need to hit them with something they're not expecting. Henry pulled out his laptop. He'd been working on something for the past 3 days. A presentation. Photographs, his medium, his language. He showed them. Hundreds of photos of Mindy over the past 2 years. At the park, laughing. At her school science fair, proud. At Sherry's grave, sad but not broken. At home, cooking dinner with him, doing homework, reading on the couch. Every image time-stamped, geotagged, contextualized. This, Henry said, is documentation. This is proof of a father and daughter living a normal, healthy life. Not obsession, not control, just a family. Then he showed them the second part. Screenshots of the Mars social media, going back 2 years. Posts about grieving a daughter lost to preventable tragedy. Comments about the dangers of medical neglect. A pattern of blame, of resentment, of barely concealed rage. They've been building their narrative publicly, Henry explained. Positioning themselves as victims, me as villain. But they got sloppy. Look at this post from 6 months ago. It was from Jan's Facebook. A link to an article about parental alienation tactics, with her comment, sometimes the only way to save a child is to remove them from a toxic environment, no matter what it takes. 6 months ago, right when they'd started planning this. Beautiful, Billy murmured. They documented their own conspiracy. The pieces were falling into place. But Henry knew they needed more. They needed Mindy's voice, her truth, before it was completely rewritten. I need to get inside that facility, Henry said. That's illegal, Billy replied automatically. I'm not going to break her out. I just need to see her. Talk to her. Record what she says now, before they finish whatever they're doing to her. Larry shook his head. Security's tight. Cameras everywhere. They'd spot you in seconds. Not if I have a reason to be there. Henry turned to Larry. You said they have staff. What kind? Therapists, nurses, administrative. Why? Because I'm very good at getting into places I'm not supposed to be. It's part of my job. Crime scenes are locked down. but I always find a way to photograph what needs to be seen. Billy and Larry exchanged glances. If you get caught, Billy started. I won't get caught. Henry's voice was steady. And even if I do, what are they going to do? I'm already painted as the unstable father. Might as well earn the reputation. Larry finally nodded. I know a guy who can get you credentials. Temporary staff badge, background that'll check out for 48 hours. After that, it falls apart. I only need tonight. Meadowbrook Youth Wellness Center sat nestled in pine trees, looking more like a mountain resort than a treatment facility. Henry approached at shift change, 8 p.m., when tired day staff left and fresh night staff arrived. The badge Larry had provided said he was Carl Salazar, behavioral specialist, on loan from a partner facility for night shift observation training. The front desk clerk barely glanced at him. First night. Yes, ma'am. Just observing, learning protocols. West Wing, check in with Nurse Kirby. She'll show you around. Henry moved through hallways that smelled of pine-scented cleaner and something underneath, desperation maybe, sadness. He'd photographed enough institutional spaces to recognize the veneer of normalcy covering systematic dehumanization. Barb Kirby was 60, efficient, and exhausted. She gave him a quick tour. 16 residents currently. Ages 12 to 17. Various issues. You're just observing. Just observing. Good. Don't interact with the kids unless necessary. They're in free time right now, rec room or their rooms. Bed check at 9:30. Henry nodded, following her through the West Wing. Each room had a small window in the door. He glanced through each one, try not to seem too interested, just a new staff member learning the layout. Then he saw her. Room 14. Mindy sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the wall. She looked so small, so lost. Henry's hand moved to the door handle. That one special care, Barb said behind him. Private treatment, family request. No interaction without Dr. O'Connell's approval. What's she in for? Severe anxiety, parental trauma. Poor thing. But she's making progress. Been here about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of this. Henry forced himself to keep walking, keep the tour going. But his mind was racing. He needed to get into that room. Needed to talk to Mindy, record her words, see if any part of his daughter was still in there. At 9:15, Barb left him at the nurse's station. I'm going to check on supplies. If you need anything, radio. Don't wander off. The moment she disappeared, Henry moved. Room 14 had a keypad lock. 5-digit code. He'd watched Barb's fingers when she demonstrated earlier. Muscle memory from years of photographing details. For -7-2-9-1. He typed it in. The lock clicked. Mindy didn't look up when he entered. She was still staring at the wall, rocking slightly. Mindy, Henry whispered. Sweetheart, it's Dad. She went rigid. Then slowly, so slowly, she turned her head. When her eyes met his, there was no recognition. Just fear. You're not supposed to be here, she said, her voice flat. They said you might try to find me. They said you'd pretend to care. But you just want to control me. Henry's heart shattered, but he kept his voice calm. Mindy, that's not true. I'm your dad. I love you. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. You made Mom die. The words came out like a mantra, something repeated so many times it had become truth. You convinced her not to get treatment. You killed her. And then you tried to make me replace her. You wouldn't let me have my own life. Who told you that? Grandma. Grandpa. Dr. O'Connell. They've been helping me remember things clearly. Things you made me forget or think were normal. Henry pulled out his phone, hit record, and held it up. Mindy, I need you to listen to me for just a minute. Can you do that? She looked at the phone with suspicion. What is that? I'm recording this. Because I want you to hear the truth, and I want proof of what they've done to you. He took a breath. Your mom made her own decisions about her treatment. I supported her, but I didn't force her to do anything. She was scared of chemo, so she researched alternatives. When it was clear time was running out, she chose to start treatment, but by then, his voice cracked. By then it was too late. We both loved her. We both wanted her to live. But cancer doesn't care what we want. Mindy's eyes filled with tears, but her expression stayed hard. You're lying. You're good at lying. Dr. O'Connell said you'd twist things, Make me doubt what I know. What do you know, sweetheart? Really know, not what they've told you to believe. I know that you wouldn't let me go to sleepovers, that you call me too much, that you made me scared to leave you alone because you might. She stopped. Because I might what? Hurt yourself, she whispered. Because you were so sad about Mom, and I felt responsible for making you okay. That's not normal. That's emotional abuse. They'd given her the language, turned his grief into manipulation, turned her compassion into evidence of wrongdoing. Mindy, grief is hard. Losing your mom was the worst thing that ever happened to both of us. Did I lean on you sometimes? Yes. Did I need you? Absolutely. But that's what family does. We help each other. That's not abuse. That's love. Love doesn't feel like that. Her voice was robotic now, reciting. Love isn't pressure. Love isn't fear. Love lets you be free. And you think being locked in this room is freedom? I'm not locked in. I'm healing. When I'm ready, when I understand everything clearly, I'll go live with Grandma and Grandpa. Where it's safe. Henry wanted to grab her, shake her, make her see, but he knew that would only confirm everything they told her. So he did the only thing he could. He told her the truth. Your Grandma and Grandpa blame me for your mom's death. They believe for 2 years that I killed her, even though it's not true. They've been planning to take you from me as punishment. They brought you here to break you down, to rewrite your memories, to make you afraid of me. Everything they've told you is designed to accomplish one goal, separating us forever. That's paranoid. But her voice wavered slightly. Is it? Mindy, think. Really think. When did you start feeling afraid of me? Before you came here? Or after? She blinked. For just a second, confusion crossed her face. Before you left for vacation, we were okay, weren't we? You were excited about starting 7th grade. We were planning that camping trip. You just gotten into photography club at school. Do you remember being afraid of me then? Dr. O'Connell says I suppressed it, that I normalized the abuse because I didn't know better. Or maybe there was nothing to suppress. Maybe you were just a normal kid with a dad who loved her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Stop it. You're confusing me. Good. Be confused. Confusion means you're thinking for yourself. That's what they don't want. Footsteps in the hall. Henry had seconds. Mindy, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to get you out of here. And when I do, you'll see the truth. Just hold on a little longer, okay? I don't want you to fight for me. Her voice rose. I want you to leave me alone. The door burst open. Barb Kirby and a security guard. What the hell? Barb grabbed her radio. Security breach, room 14. Henry raised his hands, phone still recording. I just wanted to see my daughter. You're not authorized. The guard grabbed Henry's arm. Who cleared you? Nobody. I'm Henry Richardson. That's my daughter, and I'm taking her home. More security arrived. They pulled him from the room. Mindy was crying now, curled on her bed. The last thing Henry saw before they dragged him into the hall was her face, terrified, confused, lost. But he'd recorded it all. Her words, her conditioning, the evidence of what they'd done. They threw him out the front door, called the police. By the time Billy arrived with the emergency custody hearing order, Henry was in handcuffs. That was monumentally stupid, Billy said as they sat in the police station. I got what I needed. Henry showed him the recording. Billy listened, his expression growing darker. Christ, they really did a number on her. Can we use it? Maybe. It's evidence of parental alienation, but it also shows you violated facility rules and possibly traumatized your daughter further. She's already traumatized. At least now we have proof. The hearing was set for the next morning. Henry spent the night in holding, charged with trespassing. The Mars had played this perfectly. Now he really did look unstable, dangerous, exactly what they claimed. But as Henry lay on the hard bench in his cell, staring at the ceiling, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Clarity. He'd seen Mindy, seen what they'd done to her, and now he knew exactly how to fight back. Because the Mars had made their own mistake. They'd created a narrative so elaborate, so precisely crafted, that it was brittle. One crack, one piece of evidence that didn't fit, and the whole thing would shatter. And Henry knew exactly where to strike. The courtroom was smaller than Henry expected. District Judge Reginald Chambers presided, 63, with silver hair and a reputation for fairness. Billy had done his research. Chambers had a daughter Mindy's age. That could work for or against them. The Mars sat with their attorney, a sharp woman named Paula Mercer who looked like she ate fathers for breakfast. Dr. O'Connell sat behind them, ready to testify. Henry sat next to Billy, wearing the suit he'd worn to Sherry's funeral. It felt appropriate. He was fighting for what remained of his family. Paula Mercer went first. She painted a picture of a troubled man, unable to cope with loss, projecting his trauma onto his daughter. She presented the psychiatric hold, the trespassing charge, the obsessive calling pattern. She had Dr. O'Connell's affidavit describing Mindy's disclosure of emotional abuse. This is a father who cannot distinguish his needs from his child's well-being, Paula concluded, who has created an environment so enmeshed, so psychologically damaging, that professional intervention became necessary. The Mars are not seeking punishment. They're seeking to protect their granddaughter from further harm. It was good, persuasive. If Henry hadn't known the truth, he might have believed it. Then it was Billy's turn. He started with Sherry's medical records. Put them on the screen for everyone to see. The narrative we've heard is that Henry Richardson convinced his wife to refuse cancer treatment. But the medical records tell a different story. Sherry Richardson asked questions, researched options, and made her own informed decisions. The only people trying to pressure her? Her parents, Jan and Jonathan Marr. Paula objected. Your Honor, Mrs. Richardson's medical decisions are not on trial here. But they're the foundation of the Marrs' claim, Billy countered. They believe Mr. Richardson killed their daughter. That's the motive for everything that's happened. And it's based on a lie. Judge Chambers reviewed the records. I'll allow it. Continue, Mr. Mason. Billy presented the social media posts next. Jan's comments about removing children from toxic environments, posted 6 months before this started. Jonathan's posts about justice for preventable tragedies, a pattern of blame, of planning. This isn't a grandmother concerned about her granddaughter's welfare. This is a woman planning revenge. Then came the recording from 47 Maple Street. The courtroom fell silent as Jonathan Marr's voice filled the space. You killed our daughter, Henry. Now you'll watch us unmake yours. The color drained from Jan's face. Jonathan sat rigid, expressionless. Paula Mercer's confident demeanor cracked. Billy let the entire conversation play. Every admission, every detail of their plan. When it finished, the silence was deafening. Your Honor, Billy said quietly, this is a confession. Conspiracy to commit fraud, parental alienation, false imprisonment, drugging someone without consent. They've systematically manipulated a 12-year-old child to serve their vendetta against her father. Judge Chambers looked at the Marrs. Is this recording authenticated? Yes, Your Honor. Time-stamped, geotagged, unedited. We can provide the original file for independent verification. Paula Mercer stood. Your Honor, even if this recording is genuine, it doesn't negate the legitimate concerns about Mr. Richardson's stability. He broke into a facility where his daughter was receiving treatment. Because they told him to come at midnight. Because they lured him into a trap. Billy pulled out the screenshots from Larry's investigation. This facility, Meadowbrook, has a history of questionable practices. And Mindy Richardson was placed there without a court order, without her father's knowledge, under false pretenses. She's being held and subjected to what amounts to psychological torture, all to serve the Marrs revenge plot. He played the recording from Mindy's room. Her robotic recitation of the abuse narrative. Her confusion. Her tears. This is what 3 weeks of treatment has done to a healthy, well-adjusted child. They've convinced her to fear her own father. They've rewritten her memories, her reality, her understanding of love itself. Judge Chambers' expression had gone from neutral to grave. I want to hear from Dr. O'Connell. O'Connell took the stand, sworn in. He looked considerably less confident than he had at 47 Maple Street. Billy approached. Dr. O'Connell, when did you first meet Mindy Richardson? 4 weeks ago. And in that time, you diagnosed her with severe anxiety and parental trauma? Based on extensive interviews and observation, yes. Without ever speaking to her father? Without reviewing her school records, talking to her teachers, consulting with her pediatrician? The Marrs provided context. The Mars, who we've just heard confess to a revenge plot. Those are your unbiased sources. O'Connell's jaw tightened. I conducted my evaluation professionally. You conducted an evaluation designed to reach a predetermined conclusion. You participated in a conspiracy to alienate a child from her parent using your credentials as cover. Billy pulled out more records. I have statements from 3 of your former patients' families describing similar patterns. Children placed in your care who emerged convinced their parents were abusive, despite no prior evidence. You have a history of facilitating parental alienation. Objection. Paula was on her feet. These allegations are unsubstantiated. I have documentation, Your Honor. Complaints filed with the medical board. They were dismissed due to lack of evidence, but the pattern is clear. Judge Chambers held up a hand. I'll review the documentation. Dr. O'Connell, did you record your sessions with Mindy Richardson? Some of them, yes, for treatment purposes. I want those recordings, all of them, to be reviewed by an independent child psychologist. O'Connell paled. Doctor-patient confidentiality can be waived by court order when abuse is suspected. You'll provide them by end of business today. Billy returned to his seat. The momentum had shifted. Paula tried to recover, put Jan on the stand, had her tearfully describe her love for Mindy, her concern for the girl's well-being. But it rang hollow after the recording. Every word of motherly concern was tainted by Jonathan's confession. Now you'll watch us unmake yours. When it was Henry's turn to testify, he spoke simply, described his relationship with Mindy before she left, the daily calls that went from warm to absent, his growing concern, the note that led him to 47 Maple Street. I made mistakes, he admitted. I should have kept the note. I shouldn't have gone alone. And I definitely shouldn't have broken into Meadowbrook. But everything I did because I knew my daughter was in danger. A father knows. And I was right. Paula cross-examined hard, pressed him on the psychiatric hold, the trespassing, his obsessive behavior. Mr. Richardson, isn't it true that you couldn't accept your daughter growing up? That you needed her to stay dependent on you? No, I wanted her to grow up healthy and happy. That's what any parent wants. Yet you called her 7 times in 3 weeks. Because she stopped answering. Because something was wrong. If I'd called once and been satisfied with she's fine, I'd be failing as a father. You photographed death for a living and brought that darkness home. I documented crime scenes to help bring justice to victims. I never brought my work home. Mindy's never even seen my case files. You isolated her. I love her. There's a difference. The cross-examination went on, but Henry stayed steady. He'd learned from photographing hundreds of crime scenes. Tell the truth, stick to facts, don't let them rattle you. Finally, Judge Chambers called a recess. I need to review all this evidence. We'll reconvene in 2 hours. Those 2 hours felt like days. Henry sat in the courthouse cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee, while Billy made calls and reviewed strategy. It could go either way, Billy admitted. The recording is damning, but you did break the law. And Mindy's testimony, if she testified right now, would probably support the Mars. Chambers has to decide if he believes they poisoned her mind or if she's revealing real abuse. What are our odds? Better than they were this morning, but still not great. When they returned to the courtroom, Judge Chambers looked tired. Older, like the past 2 hours had aged him. I've reviewed everything presented today, he began, and I'm deeply troubled by what I've seen. This case represents a fundamental failure by the medical system, by the family court system, and by adults who should have prioritized a child's well-being over their own pain. He looked at the Mars. I don't question that you loved your daughter, or that you're grieving her loss. But grief is not license for cruelty. And what you've done to Mindy, whatever your motivations, constitutes psychological abuse. Jan started crying. Jonathan remained stone-faced. Mr. Richardson, you've made serious errors in judgment. Breaking into a treatment facility, regardless of your reasons, cannot be condoned. However, I understand the desperation that drove those actions. Henry held his breath. Here's my ruling. Custody of Mindy Richardson remains with her father, Henry Richardson. The Mars petition for emergency guardianship is denied. However, given Mindy's current psychological state, she cannot be immediately removed from treatment. She needs deprogramming, for lack of a better word, under the care of an independent psychologist with no connection to either party. He continued, Dr. O'Connell, you are hereby ordered to cease all contact with Mindy Richardson. The medical board will be notified of the recordings and testimony from today. Meadowbrook Youth Wellness Center will be investigated for their role in this matter. Paula Mercer stood. Your Honor, if Mindy remains in treatment, who has authority? I'm appointing a guardian ad litem to oversee her care during the transition period. Mr. Richardson will have supervised visitation, increasing to unsupervised as the independent psychologist determines appropriate. This will be a gradual process focused entirely on Mindy's recovery. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't immediate, but it was victory. Henry felt something unknot in his chest. Mindy was safe. The Mars couldn't touch her. As for the criminal charges, Judge Chambers continued, addressing the Mars. I'm referring this case to the district attorney. What I've heard today suggests multiple felonies. That's outside this court's jurisdiction, but rest assured it will be pursued. Jonathan Marr finally spoke. Your Honor, we only wanted. You wanted revenge. You wanted to inflict the pain you felt onto someone else, and you used a child to do it. That's unforgivable. Chambers' voice was cold. This hearing is adjourned. As they filed out, Henry saw Jan collapse into Jonathan's arms, sobbing. He felt no satisfaction in their pain, only exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, Billy clapped him on the shoulder. We won. Not yet. Not until Mindy's home. It'll take time. Weeks, maybe months. But you'll get her back. Henry nodded. He could wait. He'd waited this long. Dr. Timothy Archer became Mindy's new therapist. The same psychiatrist who'd evaluated Henry was now tasked with undoing what O'Connell had done. Henry appreciated the symmetry. The visitation started a week later. Supervised, 30 minutes, in a neutral office with Dr. Archer present. Mindy wouldn't look at Henry for the first session. Just sat curled in a chair, silent. I know you're confused, Henry said gently, and angry, and scared. That's okay. All of those feelings are valid. She didn't respond. I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. I'm just going to be here. And when you're ready to talk, I'll listen. Week 2, she spoke. Dr. Archer says Grandma and Grandpa lied to me. Yes. He says they made me believe things that weren't true. Yes. But it felt true. It still feels true sometimes. Henry's heart broke. That's what they wanted. They were very good at making lies feel like truth. Were you good at making me believe things too? I hope so. I hope I was good at making you believe you were loved. Because you were. You are. Week 3, she asked about Sherry. Did you really kill Mom? Henry took a breath. Your mom had cancer. She researched her treatment options and made her own choices. I supported her, but I didn't control her. When the cancer got worse, she chose to try treatment, but it was too late. I would have done anything to save her, Mindy. Anything. But I couldn't. Grandma said you stopped her from getting help. Grandma was wrong, and I think deep down she knows that. But it's easier to blame me than to accept that sometimes terrible things happen and it's nobody's fault. Tears rolled down Mindy's cheeks. I miss her. Me too, sweetheart. Every day. Week 4, she asked, can I come home? When you're ready. When Dr. Archer says you're ready. Am I broken? No. Henry's voice was fierce. You're hurt. But hurt isn't broken. We're going to heal together. It took 2 months. 2 months of therapy, of slowly rebuilding trust, of Mindy learning to distinguish between true memories and implanted ones. Dr. Archer was patient, thorough, never pushing too hard. The day he approved overnight visits, Henry cried in the parking lot. Mindy came home on Saturday. She stood in the doorway of their house, looking around like she'd never seen it before. It's smaller than I remembered, she said. Is that bad? No. It feels safe. Small and safe. They ordered pizza, their old Friday tradition, even though it was Saturday. Watched a movie. Mindy fell asleep on the couch halfway through, her head on Henry's shoulder. He didn't move. Didn't want to risk waking her. Just sat there, feeling the weight of his daughter against him, solid and real and home. The criminal charges against the Marrs and O'Connells moved slowly. Federal charges for the drugging incident. State charges for conspiracy, false imprisonment, parental alienation. The system ground forward at its typical pace. But Henry had learned patience. And he had one more move to make. He'd spent months photographing crime scenes, documenting evidence, helping bring justice. Now he'd document this, the full story of what happened to Mindy, backed by every piece of evidence he collected. He wrote it all down. The medical records proving the Mars narrative was false. The social media posts showing their planning. The recording from 47 Maple Street. The footage from Meadowbrook. Dr. Archer's reports on the psychological damage done to Mindy. He compiled it into a single document, thoroughly sourced, impossible to dismiss. Then he sent it to 3 places. The medical board reviewing O'Connell's license, the Colorado Department of Human Services investigating Meadowbrook, and a journalist named Santiago Molina who specialized in exposing institutional abuse. Santiago's article ran 6 weeks later. The weaponization of child psychology, how one family used the mental health system for revenge. It went viral. Meadowbrook shut down within a month, their license revoked. Dr. Philip O'Connell lost his medical license. Elena Clark O'Connell faced charges from the social work board. Other families came forward describing similar patterns, similar manipulation. The Mars were convicted on multiple counts. Jonathan got 4 years. Jan got 3+ probation. They'd be elderly when they got out, their reputations destroyed, their revenge plot turned into their own destruction. Henry took no pleasure in it, but he felt justice had been served. 1 year after the courthouse hearing, Henry and Mindy stood at Sherry's grave. It was her birthday. They brought flowers, pink roses, her favorite. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" Mindy asked. She was 13 now, taller, stronger. Still working through things with Dr. Archer, but getting better every day. "I think she'd be proud of you," Henry said. "For surviving something no kid should have to survive. For being brave enough to heal. And you? Do you think she'd be proud of you?" Henry thought about it. About the recordings, the legal battles, the months of fighting. "I think she'd be proud that I didn't give up on you. That's what parents do. We fight for our kids no matter what." Mindy leaned against him. "I'm glad you didn't give up. Never. Not ever." They stood there as the sun set over Denver, father and daughter, still healing but together. The Mars had wanted to unmake them. Instead, they'd been remade, stronger, wiser, unbreakable. Henry pulled out his camera. "Want to take some pictures?" Mindy smiled, the first real smile he'd seen in over a year. "Yeah, let's document this." And they did. Father and daughter, capturing light in darkness, finding beauty in survival, creating new memories to replace the ones that had been stolen. They were going to be okay. They already were. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.